America gave the world a glimpse of the future in the tech-forward year of 1893? Welcome to American Esoterica. If history class gives you the devil, this is the White City, the essential stuff in between, the personalities, events, and other ephemera that shape our history and culture. I'm Brian Powers. There are a few moments in American history that seem to take an outsized importance in the future to come. The American Revolution and the assassination of Abraham Lincoln spring to mind, but there are a few less obvious choices, such as the World's Fair in Chicago in 1893. It was there where the entire world was given a preview of life in the next century, and much of the progress exhibited there is still with us today. We won't go too much into the details of the origin of planning for what was officially called the World's Columbian Exposition, other than to note that the leadership of Chicago lobbied so aggressively to get the fair that it was then that a columnist in competing New York City suggested that his readers ignore the claims of that windy city, thus potentially, according to some, giving it a nickname. The man with the plan, so to speak, was Daniel Burnham, and he assembled a murderer's row of architects, engineers, urban park planners, artists, and more to bring his dream of a magnificent city to life. If that sounds familiar, it may be because nearly the same group of people would come together after the turn of the century in Washington, D.C. as the first members of the Commission of Fine Arts. The White City, the focus of the fair, was a marvel of ingenuity, engineering, and good old-fashioned elbow grease, just the building of which would be enough to change your everyday life 130-plus years later. To start with, the fair's planners wanted a unique engineering spectacle, something to rival the Eiffel Tower, which had been built for the World's Fair in Paris just 4 years earlier. A 33-year-old crackpot named George Washington showed up with sketches for something crazy, a 264-foot-tall wheel that would spin. They dismissed him out of hand, but he came back before them armed with a few key weapons, such as letters of support from engineers attesting to the validity of his design and $400,000 from local backers to make his dream a reality. The planners enthusiastically gave him the go-ahead, and George Washington built a marvel. I'm sorry, I'm being too cute by half here. His full name was George Washington Gale Ferris Jr., and the first of its kind wheel that he built is probably still the most impressive example of a Ferris wheel. Instead of small gondolas that held a small handful of people, each instead was like a small room that held 60 passengers. The full wheel could take over 2,000 people for a spin at a time. It's estimated that more than 1.5 million took a ride during the fair. Now, quick. I'm going to give you 5 different options of inventions, and you have to decide which, if any of them, made their public debut at the Chicago World's Fair. Remember, this is 1893 we're talking about. So, your potential inventions are the tanning bed, the automatic dishwasher, the fax machine, the electric oven, and the television. Ready? Okay. So the automatic dishwasher not only made its public debut at the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition, 10 of the first units were in place in fair restaurants to help handle the massive amount of dishes. The device was the brainchild of an inventor named Josephine Garris Cochran, who also happened to be a woman. Hope you had your fainting couch handy. Cochran had invented and patented the device 7 years earlier, but it faced the public for the first time at the fair. She formed a company and sold dishwashers by the truckload. And odds are that you might have one of her company's direct-descendant dishwashers at this very moment. The company she started under her own name, the Garris Cochran Manufacturing Company, was acquired by equipment maker Hobart in the 20s, which launched a line of appliances with Cochran's patents under the name KitchenAid. But wait, there's more. Your kitchen got a double whammy of the future because also making its debut in 1893 at the fair was the first electric oven. So here's a side note. I just wanted to throw in an extra option of something that seemed plausible for 1893 but wasn't actually introduced at the fair, so I listed the electric oven. On a whim, I decided to look up when the electric oven actually debuted, and it turns out I was a little too on the mark with my fake entry. Definitely not looking up when a tanning bed was invented, though. The electric oven, the invention of Canadian Thomas Ahern, met the public for the first time as part of an electrified kitchen of the future, along with a hot plate, an electric tea kettle, and an electric ceiling fan. So yes, both the automatic dishwasher and the electric oven made their debut at the 1893 World's Fair. Sorry to our other contestants, the tanning bed, the television, and the fax machine, but those were all pretty obvious wrong choices. But wait, is that Elisha Gray's music? Here at the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition, it's Elisha Gray for the top rope with a freaking fax machine! And the crowd is just going wild! Yep, that's right. Inventor Elisha Gray, the Pete Best to Alexander Graham Bell's Ringo Starr, brought an actual rudimentary fax machine that could transmit images via wire. The future came to play in 1893. We don't need to spend much time talking about the foods that made their debut, since you probably already got half your daily dose of dietary fiber from one of them this very morning, shredded wheat. And the seventh inning stretch of the great American pastime wouldn't be the same if Cracker Jack never showed up in the White City. You do, of course, know what beer won a blue ribbon at the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition, and if that isn't a big enough hint, read the label next time you drain a tall boy while wearing an ironic trucker hat at a Wilco show. The fair's legacy even took hold on our own language. The 1-mile-long central strip of the fair was lined with games and amusement, and it was officially called the Midway Plaisance. Ever since, a similar zone of entertainment has been referred to simply as a midway. Before we leave the fair, and really, who would want to? Let's go back to one last public debut. For the fair, they really did build a small city of grand buildings, the great majority of which were only meant to be temporary, thrown together on an insane timetable, the White City. The problem? These gigantic structures all had to be painted white, evenly and consistently, and reportedly, 90% of the buildings weren't done with just days to spare. Architect Daniel Burnham tasked decorations director Francis Davis Millett with finding a solution. Millett worked out a way to compress air through a hose in such a way that it would spray paint evenly, and thus 4 painters could do the work of 50. And that's how the White City got to be so alabaster and in time for the opening of the fair. There are some other challenges to the claim, but the Millett spraying machine may be the first and most influential efficient use of spray paint. Millett would go on to join Burnham and other World's Fair planners as a founding member of the Commission of Fine Arts, but his tenure was cut short. You should count yourself privileged if you only get a part in one wildly important historical event, but Millett found himself an unwitting participant in a second, when the boat he was on sank underneath him in the North Atlantic in mid-April 1912. Man, some guys have all the luck. This has been American Esoterica. All sounds were made by me, Brian Powers. Did I get it wrong? Did I get it right? Just want to talk about how I totally ignored that the first modern serial killer, H.H. Holmes, made his debut at the 1893 World's Fair? Drop me a note. The address is yell@americanesoterica.com. More information on the show can be found at americanesoterica.com. Thank you for listening, and God bless America.